Hey, what's up guys? So today I'm going to be showcasing a budget 60 card Shaddoll profile. A lot of you guys have been requesting for the updated version since I released the last one. If you haven't already checked that, I'm going to have that in the description box below and up on the screen. But today I'm going to be updating this profile with the advent of Rise of the Duelist, a set that introduced a really powerful card. And I'm not talking about Dogmaticas, I'm not talking about Infernobles, although they are pretty good in my opinion. We're going to be talking about Shaddoll Schism or Shaddoll Rook in the OCG. This card I think elevated Shaddolls and raised their ceiling by so much. And of course, when Construct, Winda, when those cards get sent to the graveyard, you can actually recur those traps, and it's something that the Dogmatica deck can't really make use of. So I think that if you were to play a pure Shaddoll deck, which I'm going to be showcasing today, with a more heavy focus on hand traps and traps, it's a really fun, innovative take on an old strategy. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into it. I'm going to start off with the hand traps. I think I just want to get out the non-engine cards out of the way so you guys understand then we can see what are the pieces that make up the component of a Shaddoll deck. But there's going to be a heavy hand trap count, so get ready guys. We're going to start off with 3 Fantastical Dragon Phantasme. And yes, keep in mind I am playing higher rarity more than usual, but I guarantee you guys this budget is still budget at the end of the day. And with the Megatins coming out in for the 2020 year, it's gonna get even cheaper. So for example, Fantastical Dragon Phantasme, it's getting reprinted as a super rare. So and it already got reprinted as an ultra not too long ago. So a lot of these hand chips are very affordable, and a lot of the cards that I chose are quote unquote affordable. So definitely if you guys are interested in building this deck, use my TCG affiliate code in the description box below, and pick up some cards that you may be missing. I assure you most of you already have it from the Shaddoll structure deck, but we're gonna keep going. We're gonna have 3 Ghost Ogres. Essentially, sorry, just to go back to Fantastical Dragon Phantasme, these lets you draw into more hand trap. It's a dark that lets you make Winda. So it's a free body to make Winda with, as well as to let you draw into more cards for your engine, especially because you are playing 60 card deck. You have a lower chance to see the rest of your cards, but with Phantasme it helps you drawing those multiple cards helps you see pieces you're missing, and puts out put back for example a clown that you can Shaddoll fusion out later. We're playing Ghost Ogre. I think this card is really impactful in this format. So against Infernobles, right? I'm gonna leak the sauce now. These are some of the choke points of the deck. It's not necessarily choke points, but a lot of players play into it. And what I mean to this is, for example, within the Infernoble deck, a lot of people use the first effect of Isolde, especially if they're playing Tatsunoko. If you guys are not sure what those cards are, I'll have them up on the screen so you can read them. But essentially, a lot of people fall into the trap of using the first effect of Isolde, which lets them get Ghost Ogred, which means that they no longer have the Isolde around to use the second effect. So people that don't play into it, Ghost Ogre is amazing for that. It stops the Numeron engine, which is really strong for that as well. Now, also, if you use it on Emancipator, let's say Researcher, and they start off with that, if they were to miss, it basically acts as a gamma in some sort of way. So it being a light attribute is also really handy because it lets you make Construct, aka Bay. But we're gonna keep going. 3 effect Veiler. Effect Veiler, it's a light hand trap, but it's also a spellcaster tuner. The reason for that being relevant is that you do play Hulky Fibrax in the extra deck, also alongside Selene. So this gives you easy OTK access with the access code combo. But on top of that, the really cool thing about Veiler is that it's essentially I think better than Imperm in this deck, just mainly due to the fact that it gives you a monster, so you can always make use of it, even if you don't hand trap your opponent, or if your opponent decides to play some sort of trap deck and it's not relevant. At least Veiler can be still put to use. Next we have 3 Side Frame Gear Gamma, and then the one of Driver, which is obviously the brick. There are actually some cool plays you can actually do with Driver. Even if you hard draw it, it's still a light monster, so you can use it as material for El Shaddoll, which lets you get access to Construct. And Driver being in the graveyard still allows you to use Gamma, because Gamma says you can special summon the Driver from both hand, deck, or graveyard. And of course, Gamma being a really good card in the essence that it negates and destroy, and Gamma on the first thing that the rock player summons generally stops their turn, so it's really impactful for that. And then the last sort of hand trap is 3 Nibiru. So Nibiru is really nice. I think it's much better, especially when you're playing 3 Phantasme as well as 3 Veiler on top of it, as well as Gamma, which means that You can go like Nibiru Gamma, you can go Nibiru Ogre. So you see that like because we're playing 16 hand traps effectively, you have a high chance to see multiples, which means that a Nibiru in conjunction with any other hand trap allows you to actually play through them having like a Guardian, or like them having an, or like turboing out Appaloosa doesn't actually help. So what I mean by this is you can go like, you know, Chainlink 1 Nibiru, they'll go Chainlink 2 Appaloosa, you can go Chainlink 3 Veiler, Ogre, you can go Chainlink 3 Gamma. Like I said, all these types of hand traps effectively allows you to resolve Nibiru, even though they think they're safe with Appaloosa on the field. And now we finish up the hand trap count, and we're gonna go into like the rest of the monster count, which is the engine pieces. All right, now we're gonna get into like the engine pieces. So for the starters, we're gonna play Mathematician as a 3-of, and then we're gonna play the Armonite. So Mathematician is really strong. It can send any level 4 or lower monster from your deck to the graveyard, essentially allowing you to send cards like Wendy, which is a wind monster, something that Armageddon Knight can't not do. And you can bypass that by obviously sending Squamata and then sending Wendy, but Mathematician is really nice for that. It's also really relevant being a spellcaster, because it actually lets you make Selene when you have non-spellcaster monsters on the field, and that it being a spellcaster lets you get access to that. And yeah, Mathematician being an extra body and then triggering your Shaddolls is, you know, always wonderful. And the other cool thing about it is if it somehow gets left on the field and they do crash into it, you can damage that draw, and that always helps a lot. And Arma is just an Arma, you know, there's not much to say about it. It triggers your Shaddoll monsters, so it's really strong. The thing that Armageddon Knight can do that Mathematician can is that it can send Shaddoll Beast, so like you can draw off that, because Beast is a level, you know, 5 monster. But for the rest of that, these are eventually your starters. Like, you know, opening these are really strong. The other cool thing is Mathematician is an Earth monster. Why is that relevant? Well, essentially you can Shaddoll Schism into a Shashinaga, and Shashinaga says like the attribute that you fusion summon, or the monster that you summon out of due to Schism, you can send one monster your opponent control with the same attribute as the fusion monster you summon, which in this case would be Earth. So against like the, you know, like the block deck or like the rock deck, you can send their summon Doki, etc., send their researchers before they get to play. And then Shashinaga being a negate is also really nice. And of course, it has the same recursion as any of the Shaddoll monsters. But now we're gonna jump into the rest of the Shaddoll lineup. So we're gonna start off with like the 1-ofs. We're gonna play the 1-of Dragon. I thought about bumping this card up to 2, but it's really nice. It helps you out like Floodgates. It also helps you out like pretty much like any like annoying back row, and it turns Construct into a huge utility monster. So Construct resolving on your opponent's turn essentially means you can DD Crow them for 3 with Aerial, you can pop a smaller trap with Dragon, you can get a free special summon body, you can get a free draw to draw into hand traps because you are playing like, you know, 15. So essentially like Construct, you know, resolving your opponent's turn gives you so much utility, and essentially playing the Shaddoll monsters gives access to that. Then we're gonna play double Aerial. Aerial is amazing. Main reason being like Elik is in the format, and also what it can do is it can banish the Golden Lords. It can banish their traps so that they don't get the same grind game. So you banish their resources and essentially stop their grind game early. So you hit them, you know, earlier so that they can't keep grinding. But the beautiful thing about this deck is this deck recurs its resources really well. And against like, you know, any trap deck, its ability to keep up is mainly due to Aerial banishing their resources. It can also banish like the opponent's Block Dragon. It can banish like Earth monsters in their graveyard, so they don't, even if you know they have the Block Dragon, you can make sure that they never have enough Earth in the graveyard, so you can preemptively hit the Earth monsters in their grave with Aerial, so they don't get access to Block Dragon, and that's a really cool interaction as well. Then we're playing double Falco. Falco is really nice. I think this card's severely underrated. It's a spellcaster tuner, which means it's a card that you can summon off of Hulky Fibrax. And if you have any other Shaddoll monster, you can turn that and convert that into a Shaddoll construct. I'm talking about the Link monster. And that lets you essentially fusion summon and lets you get access to fusion summoning without drawing the fusion spell. It also, Falco can, you know, reborn and recur back any Shaddoll monsters in face-down defense. So you can like at end phase, it'll be really cool to like, you know, book back your Shaddoll Beast, and then you can start your turn off drawing 2 cards and discarding 1 to trigger out more Shaddoll cards. So Falco is just like really insane. You can bring it back with you know, Selene, you know, gets you access to access code play. So Falco is really nice. Then you play double Beast. Shaddoll Beast, you play that too just because you always want to have 1 to summon, special summon from the deck from Wendy. And also the draw 2 discard one is always like so free. Like I said, you're playing 15 hand traps, right? So whenever you draw 2 cards, you're drawing to like Nibiru, you're drawing to like Valor, Gamma, cards that you can, or like Ogre, like cards that you can use right away to disrupt your opponent even more. And then whenever you discard, when you actually go plus, so at the end of the day, it's like legitimately 2 free cards. It's basically another way to look at it as like another Phantasma in your deck. Like you're basically digging in your deck, disrupt your opponent, and then essentially grinding out, and then like eventually like leading to like basically a winning game state for you. Then we're gonna play 3 Shaddoll Wendy, like the best Shaddoll monster I think in the deck, at least in the main deck. It's just like way too insane. Like every time it gets popped by like, let's say like Apocalypse getting tributed, like who plays Dracos anymore, right? I'm just kidding. Shout out to Susu. Essentially like this card, whenever it floats, and that's really, really important because it floats when it's flipped or destroyed by card effect, and it just gets you access to another card. So for example, like Wendy can float you into a Ariel. Ariel, if they attack it, can bring back your Shaddoll construct, and you can continuously like you loop your resources, and that's why Wendy is really, really strong for that. Hedgehog is amazing. Main reason being that if you set it off of Wendy, you like during your opponent's end phase, you can start off your turn with a fusion spell. So if they leave their like, let's say Balinks, or they leave like, I don't know, like an IP Masquerena, etc., you get access to Shaddoll Fusion, and then Shaddoll Fusion usually turns the point in your favor because you go plus 3 to 4 off that just one card. And Hedgehog is probably one of the best ones because you want to play 3 of the Shaddoll monsters that translates to other Shaddoll monsters into your deck. So Hedgehog, Wendy, Triple Squamata, these all convert into other Shaddoll monsters that you want. So these are like ways to get access to other Shaddoll cards in your deck. Squamata is really insane because it basically is Construct, and it dumps any Shaddoll cards. A lot of people usually like would dump Shaddoll monsters off Squamata, but the really cool play that you can do is you can actually dump like Schism. You can dump El Shaddoll, Shaddoll Fusion, and when you do go into like Construct Winda, you then now have access to those cards in the graveyard. So like Squamata is really, really strong because it literally sends any Shaddoll card, and you have to like keep that in mind as you're making plays because it's more than just sending monsters to trigger their effects. Like you can send like a Shaddoll and then use Shaddoll to like let's say flip up a dragon, and then dragon can bounce a card on their field. So like it's just like those type of like forward thinking plays that you can do with his deck that really like puts it on a much higher ceiling. And then essentially like the honorary ones, Damage Juggler and Trick Clown. This is a budget variant. Like personally, I would actually prefer to play Elik the Golden Lord, but I think these two are like good enough substitutes. Damage Juggler actually prevents FDKs if you guys don't know this, because you can actually discard from the hand to turn any damage that you would take into 0. It negates and destroy too, so it's like a pseudo hand trap. And when it hits the grave, you can start your turn off by banishing it to search a Trick Clown. So like you would literally have 6 cards in hand, and you negate and destroy a card that would have burned you. So it's really, really strong for that. And Trick Clown has the ability to recur itself a lot, so this is really, really good for that. But if you guys are more interested in like a more, I guess, expensive build and have a little bit more to your budget, I would play Golden Lord, just because you can send it off of Shaddoll Fusion. It's a light monster, and it also helps you out like really problematic cards because you can send it to the graveyard with another spell in your hand and play through that. But that's pretty much it, guys, for the like the Shaddoll monster lineup. All right, guys, and now we're gonna head into like the spells. So we're gonna play the one of Foolish Burial. Foolish Burial is nuts. I mean, you can send any monster from your deck to the graveyard, so this card is basically any card in your deck if you think of it that way. So it's really, really strong. There's not much to say about it. We're gonna play 3 Shaddoll Fusion, the bread and butter of the deck. I mean, this card resolving and your opponent control an extra deck monster is most of the time game. It's just way too much advantage off one card, right? And that's why like previously you used to see like Orcus decks or Ghost Second Orcus deck actually make use of Shaddoll Fusion, just because you gain way too much like advantage off one card. So like any card that literally gives you like +2 and 3, you want to max it out. And in this deck, like you use it to its like max potential, I would say, because you can recur it. And then the 3 El Shaddoll Fusion. It's a card that lets you play on your opponent's turn. Being a quick play is like amazing. Like I said before, like the potential you have with El Shaddoll Fusion is really nuts. Like it turns into anything you want, right? Like I said, it can be a DD Crow, it can be a Floodgate in the form of Winda, it can be spell and trap removal. And this all happens, you can do this on your opponent's end phase, right? So when they set cards and feel safe, like essentially you essentially set up a lot of resources and take away a lot of their cards just by El Shaddoll. So this card is really, really good. And then of course, like I said before, this is a 60 card build. So, and I did say that it is more of a trap variant. So I'm going to be showcasing like the trap cards. So we're going to play triple Sinister Shadow game. This card is amazing. Not a lot of people actually know about this card. First of all, it doesn't have Shaddoll in the name, so you cannot recur it. But that's also one of the reasons why a lot of people don't know about the card, because it doesn't have like Shaddoll in the name. But Sinister Shadow game is a card that actually was used in Duelist Alliance format. For those of you who don't know, I've been looking into that, I guess that format, because I do enjoy like past formats and learning, you know, about the history of Yu-Gi-Oh and what it was like in previous years. Well, so Sinister Shadow game was really broken and impactful in that format. Why? It can send you any Shaddoll card from the deck to the graveyard. It's basically another Squamata. But what does it do? It is essentially acts like a construct for you during your opponent's turn. But it has that additional effect that it lets you flip face up any Shaddoll monster face down up. And why is that really good? Because if you were to start off your turn like with Mathman and you dump a Wendy, and then Wendy can set a Squamata, essentially Sinister Shadow game now serves as a DD Crow, as well as it flips your Squamata up so the Squamata can pop and disrupt your opponent's like normal summon, right? And so like for a deck that is heavily normal summon reliant, this card essentially turned into like a +2 because it flipped your Squamata up to disrupt your opponent's, you know, normal summon, as well as sending like an aerial to like DD Crow the monster, or like it can pop a spell and trap. It can set you Wendy to set another card, get Falco to recur your resources on like the grind game. So this card is really nice. Of course, it can also dump like fusion spells, right? Or it can dump Schism. So like, let's say if you have Construct on the board and they're about to attack into it, you can change Sinister Shadow game, send like, let's say, Shaddoll Fusion to the graveyard. And now like, if they attack into it, you can then, you know, Construct, add back the Shaddoll Fusion, and you have like a guaranteed follow-up for the following turn. So this card, like I said, I guess like good use of this card is like really insane. Then we're gonna play double Shaddoll. I like 2. Just because generally it banishes itself, so there's like no real way to like recur it. So you generally want to have 1 to continuously loop Construct, and it can reborn any Shaddoll monster face up or face down. But what's really neat about this is like if you have Apclone in the grave, you now have a targeting negate for any card on their field. You can bring back a Construct, which gets, like I said before, access to any of the utility you know, Shaddoll monsters. You can bring back a Winda, so they're essentially flooded out. Or floodgated out. And then of course the really cool interaction is in the mirror match, you can actually use the graveyard effect to book your own monster. So like, let's say you have a Shaddoll Construct on the field, they activate Shaddoll Fusion, you can actually chain the trap card in the graveyard to book your own monster, because it doesn't actually just flip your face up, it also has the ability to book it, which means by booking it, you no longer control a monster from the extract, so their Shaddoll Fusion doesn't get that added benefit. So they would actually have to convert resources from their hand, and that's like a lot better than having them, you know, go +3 on you. So this card is really strong. One last thing before I forget, if you do play Lightning Storms, and like I said, this is a budget build, so I don't expect you guys to have it, but if you do play Lightning Storm, the other cool play is you can book your own monsters and then control only face down monsters, so that Lightning Storm is live. So that's the other cool play you can do with this. And then we're gonna have 2 Shaddoll, and now we're gonna have 2 Shaddoll Schism. So this is a new card that came out from Rise of the Duelist. This card is really crazy. It lets you it acts like a second L Shaddoll Fusion during the opponent's turn, and it banishes resources from your graveyard, which makes Aerial even better, because now Aerial can recycle those resources back. Because previously the problem with Aerial was that you never really had banished Shaddoll monsters, right, unless they got called by the grave. So now with Shaddoll Schism, you can banish those resources, use Aerial to revive it back, and then continuously loop your resources. So Shaddoll Schism is insane. It also has the effect to, like, you know, if you make Construct, you can send the opponent's soul to the graveyard because it's light. And then the dark effect can apply to, like, you know, send any dark monster. So this card is really good. It can send your opponent's Barlow Savage. It sends, by the way, so it's like Dingirsu, so it doesn't target. So Shaddoll Schism is crazy. Not much to say about it. You only play 2 because it is a hard once per turn, so once you have 1 in circulation, you actually don't need the second one, but you have the second one in case the first one gets banished. And it is searchable off of Construct. And then for more non-engine trap cards, but I would consider them engine, Paleozoic Dinomishus. This card is crazy because it doesn't discard for cost, which means you actually trigger all your Shaddoll's effect, and because you're playing cards like I guess Red Shaddoll, you're playing cards like Sinister Shadow game, you can actually chain it so you get a free body, so that you can convert it into, you have a free extra body for, like, let's say like Needle Fiber, So you can like go into like access code plays and like, you know, OTK your opponent, because access code talker or plus Shaddoll construct is 5100 damage, essentially. So that's like generally like the OTK play you do with this deck. Then we're playing triple Torrential Tribute, and probably the most underrated card that's non-engine. So Patrick Hoban had this really cool idea. So in 2014 when he played, you know, like the BA Shaddoll format, or Duelist Alliance format, he basically said that, you know, trap cards are bad. They're pretty bad because they don't really contribute too much and they're not searchable. If you hard draw them, they're not that great. But he actually mentioned in one of his deck profiles that cards like Dino Mishes, or cards that actually help you get access to your Shaddoll monsters, are basically, they're technically engine cards because they contribute to advancing your game state, right? And so cards like Torrential Tribute do exactly that. They blow up your own monsters, and because your monsters float, first of all, you got rid of their entire board, and if you have a set area, or DD crowing the rest of their graveyard, so they have no access to Block Dragon from there. So, and the thing with Torrential Tribute is it's really hard to play around because no one expects it. Because in this time and age, right, people are making monster negates, right, as they play through the board. But Torrential Tribute is a trap, right? So they have to like preemptively make a Herald or a Borderlord Savage, which you can still chain to, by the way, because Savage actually activates to equip a negate before it can officially negate. So this card is just like so insane. And so whenever I do draw this card, I just know I'm in a winning position. Like, you can have Skull Mod a Torrential Tribute, and that's like super plus, because that's technically even better because it gives you the most amount of options. And especially when you don't know how your opponent is going to play, having the most line of play possible, or like the most avenues for plays you can make, is like probably the best. So there's not much to say about Torrential. Super insane card. And then for the last three cards, the Spice, triple Ice Dragon Prison. I would have to say this card is crazy. Like, if you guys don't know what this card does, is it's a DD Crow and a banish, like, non-target. Like that's literally what the card does. And it's against decks like let's say like the block deck, you can banish their Block Dragon and their Doki Doki in one move. Like this card is just so crazy. Like because it non-targets removal, you want cards like that essentially in your deck. You know, it's trap card which triggers, you can like chain Dino Mishes to it so you can bring back a monster. And it's just like a really good card to, like, you know, remove problematic cards without, you know, controlling anything. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the deck profile, guys. We're now gonna head into the extra deck. So we're gonna start off with, you know, like the main boss monster. So 3 Shaddoll Construct. So I mean, this card, you know, it is crazy, right? Because like I said before, it acts as so much utility for your deck, and it's also really hard to out. Like the fact that it automatically destroys anything it battles is like really annoying. So they have to make like really convoluted play to like out it, and even if they do out it, you get a resource back from your graveyard to your hand, so it never feels good outing a card just for your opponent to add a card back, right? So that's the thing with it. The rest of the Shaddoll monsters or fusion monsters is gonna be Double Winda. So Double Winda comes up a lot. I mean, it's one of the best Floodgate, you know, fusion deck monsters in the game. If your opponent like activates Researcher from the hand and you chain El Shaddoll and summon Winda, they lose the game, to be quite honest. Like there's just literally nothing in their main deck that can out it except droplets. And even if they make droplet, right, the thing is, like, when you have cards like Schism, you can just make a second one. And that's how you play around cards like Droplet or Dark Ruler. You wait for them to commit, and then you just chain it to play around it. Alright. And now the last Shaddoll monster, probably my favorite one, but I only play it at 1 because it never really comes up more than that. El Shaddoll App Clone. You know, the Dogmatica deck has been, like, you know, making a lot of use from it, because, you know, they would send this and it would send Construct, loop their resources, add Shaddoll Schism, and make use for it in their deck. But App Clone in this deck is really crazy because the card you add and search is always a plus. So whenever you add one and discard one, you get to choose what you want to discard, not just the card you added. So App Clone is crazy, and you can actually bring it back with Selene. If you haven't noticed yet, this card is a spellcaster, so you can actually reborn this with Selene or reborn Window with Selene, and that's why I think Selene is amazing in the extra deck, as you will see pretty soon. We're now gonna start with like the Link ones. So Gravity Controller, that's it, nothing else. This is amazing because there's gonna be line of plays where you actually summon a lot of your resources, your Shaddoll monsters in the extra monster zone, so you can convert to a Gravity Controller. Gravity Controller also outs cards like Avermax, Boral Sword, really problematic link monsters because it shuffles it back, and this goes back into your extra X for further use. So it's really, really insane. The other thing about Gravity Controller that not a lot of people know is that it cannot be destroyed by battle in the main monster zone. So a lot of people would like try to get rid of this and like think they have game, but then you still have a Gravity Controller, so they can't really out it. So this card is like pretty good. And for the link 2s, we play Shaddoll Construct. This card is nuts. All it takes is 2 flip monsters, and the reason why it's amazing is because it lets you fusion summoning without controlling fusion spells. And this is gonna come up like sometime where like you feel like, you know, there's no line to play. You already use El Shaddoll, you already use Shaddoll Fusion, and you're like, how can I convert to more resources? Well, Shaddoll Construct lets you basically fusion summon without it. And the other cool thing about Shaddoll Construct is once it's in the graveyard, you can actually reborn it by sending any Shaddoll card, not for cost, from the hand or field to the graveyard, trigger that Shaddoll's effect, and then reborn this, and it doesn't actually get banished like other cards that generally recur themselves, right? So this card now is a free link 2 to convert to access code talkers. So it is really powerful. It's a light monster, so there's not much to say about it. This card is insane. Cross Sheep, you're playing a fusion deck, not much to say. Hockey Fibrax, every deck plays this card now. Selene. So Selene is the card that I really want to talk about. Selene is crazy. It's a spellcaster, right? And it's really easy to make in this deck because your entire deck is basically spellcasters. Like I said before, reborning Apolone, reborning Winda. You can actually reborn back like a Shaddoll monster, so you can El Shaddoll with it. It's also a light monster, so it's really powerful for that. Unicorn for utility, shuffle back their block dragon. Oh, IP, I forgot about this. There's some really cool plays you can use with IP. Especially if you leave like Winda on the board, because then you can like IP with the Winda, get back resources, especially if they can't out it. Especially if they like, you know, I don't know, like impermanent or something, you can then use IP. You can also just use IP with like, if you have a cross sheet from before, and convert that to a unicorn, and then unicorn your opponent. Access code, because access code goes blur. And then Abyss Dweller. I've been liking this card a lot. There's a really cool line of play that you can do to actually end on the Abyss Dweller on top of everything else. And that's basically making use of Aerial. Abyss Dweller is really strong because most of the time when you do make Abyss Dweller, it's with Aerial, and Aerial is a water monster. And so Abyss Dweller actually gains an extra 500 attack whenever it has materials that are waters. So this is really crazy because now Abyss Dweller becomes a 2200 attack monster, and it stops all graveyard effects on your opponents. So I mean, Block Dragon can't activate. Like if you're playing against Plunders, they can't activate. In the mirror, this card is FTK. It's just there's just so many decks that rely on like graveyard effects going through. You can look at Ellic, right? Like Golden Lord's not gonna work. They can't activate Conquistador to banish in the graveyard. Can't banish the elixirs. So Abyss Dweller is, you know, by itself also a really strong floodgate. Alright guys, so we're gonna head into the side deck now. I'm gonna show you guys 3 Cosmic Cyclone. You just want to have outs like back row decks. Generally, I think the main deck is really strong against like the, you know, the normal standard combo decks, but you just want to have outs to back row. And so I would say play 3 Cosmic Cyclone, 3 Evenly Match. These went down recently, so I figured that these would be a good pickup. I know it's like, I think this is actually the most expensive part of the entire deck, to be honest with you. But if you can't afford like Evenly Match, just play Twin Twister instead. Any like decent back removal would best fit in these categories. And then we're gonna play 3 Dark Ruler, and this is just for like the combo decks. If you Dark Ruler them and Shaddoll Fusion, you're probably winning the game. And then we're gonna play the 1 of Pank. This has to out like trap decks pretty much. Like trap decks can't out Pankratops. Like it's like really hard card to out. And if they do, they waste a strike on it. And if they waste a strike on it, you're pretty much happy with that. It converted a spell speed 3 negate out of the window, so that's fine with me. And then we're gonna play triple Artifact Sanctum. This card is crazy. Why? Because it summons you Artifact Scythe, locks your opponent out of the extra deck. They get 1 special summon off Winda. It's a light monster, so at end phase you're gonna L into a construct. Yeah, it's kind of toxic. And then we're playing double trap checks to get more access to Sanctum. So we have 5 copies of Sanctum, but then also 5 copies of Ice Dragon Return, Torrential Tribute, Paleo Dinomishus, Shaddoll, Sinister Shadow Game. So and that's pretty much it, guys, for the deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys learned something from this, and give it a take. I know it's not like the usual standard, you know, Shaddoll deck that you see, but it is a cool innovative take, I think, especially because I don't see a lot of people playing this. It's more of like a fun deck, something I would take to locals, which I have. Something I play with my friends, something new, something different. But at the same time, I do feel like it can compete with the meta. I do feel that it can compete with like the other decks in the meta game. And like I said, if you're looking for something fun, something different, try out this Shaddoll list. Let me know how it goes. Let me see if you can, you know, win to lock your opponent. Let me know. And as always, if you guys enjoyed videos, like, let me know in the comment section below, and let me know what other decks you want me to cover. Typically, I know I don't really do like physical deck profiles, but I figured, you know, I show you guys real cards because it is harder to get access to them, you know, like due to like Corona. But as always, guys, thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.